Welcome back to Beyond the Headline, everyone. It's a very exciting day to be on the show because I'm here with the co-founder and CEO of Download, Alexandra Keating. Alexandra, thank you for being here.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So your team, Alexandra, wants to own that moment when my company and I say, I want to build an app. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so I'm trying to actually start to talk to people before they even get to that point. What we're really trying to do is show people based on their existing content what we can do and what we think that they can do with an app by emailing it to them. By doing that, we sort of classify what genre they're in, what layouts we think that will perform well for their content, and show them a couple of different templates and designs so that they can get in there and start customizing. And then once they're in there, I mean, most people sort of pretty much go through the submit process. It really takes about maybe a minute and a half or something to create an app. And then once they know that, it's a freemium model and that we submit to the App Store, we sort of are now at the point where we've alleviated any sort of barrier to entry.
And when you think about it as the founder, in the next couple of years, what do you want Download to be when it grows up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that most of my mindset is really around the way that people publish content. And so really creating a platform that allows anyone to be able to do that wherever they are in the world, whatever their business is. And then without sort of having to spend, an hour on an article or, simply updating, your address on a restaurant site, right? So how do they sort of create their content, and then how should that content display once they've done it, and what does that preview and edit state look like? And this is something that I'm really thinking about just in terms of, not only the media industry, but every industry, and then also every industry globally. There's a lot of emerging countries as well who have a handset, before and even, maybe never a computer.
And you've discussed before, so you guys have been working on Download for more than the time that you've officially launched, of course.
Yeah.
And you've expressed that you feel that time before the official launch was very important, and you suggest that founders take it rather than just rushing in. Why is it so critical to your future growth?
I think that it's important, anytime you draw attention to yourself, you've got to put your best foot forward. I think a lot of people want to try and own the market by saying, hey, we're going out and we're building this. I think that's sort of more harm than good. People have a very short-term memory. They're not going to remember your product. They're not going to remember the article that they read. So as soon as you create that point of contact, getting them to be able to have the ability to take action and being able to have that as optimized as possible. I also think that just in terms of communication with their investors as well. So if a lot of it's depending if you went to family and friends, or if you got seed money from sort of small family offices, you don't want to go out and try and communicate this big thing when you can't sort of satisfy any customers, and you'll end up getting into yourself into a bit of a reporting tizzy if you're not careful.
What are some of the early challenges that you guys faced then that you don't have to worry about now?
I think recruiting's become a lot easier. Recruiting used to be a really hard thing. We're competing with a lot of companies. A lot of people don't really understand as well. Most of the guys we, have come from Google, Foursquare, Twitter, Apple, Amazon, to name a few. And so they've really sort of come from these major institutions where there's a lot of lifestyle benefits. Mm-hmm. Some of them were lifers. And so it was really hard to kind of be hey, take this huge risk with me. And, all startups, it's important to be very frugal. And so just trying to really help them figure out what it is that they need to get by, and help them manage, what sort of savings that they've got so they can come on board. And then that's also when you found the right talent, which is extremely difficult. So that whole process of recruiting used to be really, really difficult. I think now, because we have a product, because we've got such amazing backers, they love John Lilly, and the team that we have in-house helps recruit everyone else. And so it's become, something that used to take 60% of my time is now taking about 20%, and it's still happening, and we're still bringing on great people. And so I couldn't be happier about that, and that's something that's definitely gotten a lot easier.
That's great. And something you shared before we even started recording was that you guys have a long recruiting process.
Yeah.
Why is it long, especially when you're in a rush to build something?
I think it's, you end up spending every day with these people. Every sort of, they touch different components of the company. So how they work with the product team, or how they work with me, or marketing, or the tech team itself. They sort of need to be able to work with everyone, and then be a good culture fit. And so it's really important, that I really feel like everyone in the company who I think that they're going to be involved with gives them the okay. I also I'm big on projects. And then I like to sort of spend a lot of time with people socially, and see the way that they troubleshoot and they think about problems and break them down. And I also think for them, it should be, this is a big career decision. Obviously, we only want to, excuse me, bring on people who are going to be with the company for a long period of time. And so they should be really cautious as well, in terms of, making this big career step.
And you've had a lot of different roles, whether it was founder, whether it was working at Thrillist. What have you taken from those experiences to build Download and to establish that culture?
Yeah, I think that mostly I have a bit of a management style that I sort of developed, which is sort of hugely autonomous. I think that that's mostly the biggest skill. And then I think the other thing as well is just being exposed to so many different, systems and business models. I do a lot of angel investing on the side. And everything I've sort of done previously is just I've seen different things in different businesses, or been exposed to them, or worked through problems. It just makes things easier and faster. You make less mistakes the more you know, and the more you sort of see. And I think it's just given me that sort of skill set.
And when you mention autonomy, I'm thrilled you did, because I think sometimes we hear founders say we have an autonomous culture, and then everyone kind of thinks, oh, so you don't play an active role with everyone. What does autonomy really mean?
So I run everything the way I run the engineering team. So it's on a sprint-based system. So everything down to the customer service girls. And so we kind of go through, everyone kind of has their reports, which are week over week and month over month. And then we just talk about the problems that they had over the last, sort of 2 weeks, and what's coming up, and what are we trying to trouble solve, and then what I can put in the product roadmap, and then I come back to them and tell them, where it fits in the priorities, and I kind of show them in the roadmap. And so I think that's quite unusual to have so much exposure in terms of the internal runnings of the business to someone on the customer service side. So I'm very transparent. And I expect them to be the same with me. And then I'm how you go about it and how you manage your time in order to do that, it's up to you, as long as sort of the tasks get done. And if they don't, then obviously we talk about why, and we go from there.
What have you learned about giving constructive feedback?
I think I'm super honest, and I have been since day one. So I think it's just a personality thing. I think they just think I'm Australian and out there. But yeah, so everyone knows that if there is something, chances are I know about it and I'll say something. And we're now at a point where if something has happened and it hasn't come to my attention, people are coming to me first. So I think that's there's obviously some sort of communication channel that I've been able to open there, where they feel really comfortable to report sometimes bad news. There were different problems that we used to have, especially at Thrillist, when things would happen and people just wait for me to figure it out, and then they'd be like, oh, I was wondering when you were going to figure that out. And that was a really bad feedback loop. And so I think that with this company, because we just need to be so fast, I've sort of fixed that problem.
And so that just means that, if I'm on the team and I had a deadline for this project and I missed it, I can come tell you, hey, Alexandra, I missed this deadline. This is why. Can some other team members come and help me?
Yeah, so they'll usually come before, so they won't wait.
Looks like they're smarter than I am.
Yeah. And then I think, I expose, in the office, our entire roadmap and where we are. And then we've actually about to actually put in a physical ticketing thing as well for the engineering team. So as soon as they've done a task, that they physically go and move it off and check it over. And that whole idea of the action of things moving forward and people seeing what they're building towards, and knowing that if they haven't done something, that it's going to push something else back and it's going to fall on another team member is very aware.
So then the departments are working, they're all together working autonomously, right? Engineering team, et cetera.
Yeah.
And is there a lead for them, or does everyone just kind of have their role and they know what they need to do?
There's no lead at the moment, but there soon is going to be. And so that's someone, again, that we're spending a lot of time making sure that they're the right fit. Because we sort of have this autonomous process, I think that everyone's a little bit like scared of someone coming on board and sort of changing things around. So I want to make sure that they're like number one, that they're like a good independent contributor and that they can slowly grow into managing the role.
So then they're not going to start out as, manager, I've come here to implement my processes.
Yeah, they will from a title perspective and from an experience perspective, but the way that they're sort of onboarding themselves is going to be a lot more fluid.
I think that's really important because especially when you've been there since day one and you've been managing a part of the product a certain way, of course you're open to new ways, but you're kind of thinking, hey, I've been doing this, it's working really well, don't come in and change it for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I've had like a lot of people interview with the team here, and that they're very like the engineers will come up to me and be like, oh wow, like I hadn't thought about how we should build it that way, and then they get excited about the idea of working with them, and so I wouldn't bring anyone on that they didn't sort of feel that way. And then there's just like a lot of like all the machine learning stuff that we're doing. There's a lot of things that are like out of my depth, and so I really want to have someone. At the moment we have some really great strategic investors on the tech side. But now that we're getting bigger, I think they want to like stop taking my phone calls,
I'm glad that you mentioned, what you don't know, because they always say hire for your weaknesses and don't spend so much time thinking about your weaknesses that you miss out on growing the company. How do you hire for your weaknesses when you don't know so much about a role?
Yeah, I think I really just pull on a network of people around me. If I don't know, same thing. I know a lot about acquisition, but there's two people I know that know a lot more about it than I do, and so I randomly like ping them. It's like, I haven't seen you in 2 years, but I think you're really great at your job. Can you spend 20 minutes with this guy? And actually, people were really happy to do it. And the feedback I got was like, yeah, I would even call that guy to ask him some things. And I was like, okay, cool. So that feels like that I should go try and hire that guy, And so I really sort of pull on that network. And then I think internally, I actually think I internally sort of send a little bit of a different signal, which is like, don't hire someone until you've really done their job and you know exactly what the role that you're hiring them for. Obviously, if I can identify what your weaknesses are, then find someone with a greater skill set in that. But it's very hard. I think it's like sort of lower management levels to try and. They just get so excited about the idea of managing a team and bringing people on board, and they just don't understand what the onboarding process looks like, or exactly like the flow through of the work that they're supposed to be managing.
And I think that's really important for you as a founder, or for any leader who's bringing on someone else, to understand the role, because then you can actually appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And then you can also like help people go through that so they don't feel like they're in the dark. A lot of tech companies are hired so quickly that these kids sort of turn up and like it's almost like no one even knows they're there, And I think that first couple of weeks is so important on a personal level, on a relationship level, internally, and then just in terms of like how they manage their day and the routine and habits they're going to get themselves into. And
so you're really helping them navigate that like hands-on in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, like I used to be like a lot more like formal about it. Like I'd like to see someone's onboarding docs and like see what they're doing for the first 2 days and how they've thought about it. Now everyone has sort of worked it out. There's no sort of surprises, and very rarely can I add any value in terms of like how they're planning on onboarding someone.
You mentioned, Alexandra, that you'll reach out to mentors when you need a quick piece of advice for bringing on someone. I know that mentors have been very important to your journey, and that you advise people to always take meetings with people.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What are
you never know what's going to come out of them.
What are some of the best meetings that you've had?
Oh wow. I think that there's a lot of things that I get outside of people in the industry as well. I think that like Ken Lerer is someone who like really changed my perspective and sort of opened my eyes to the New York tech industry. I met him over a dinner, like the first night I arrived in New York, and he was very involved in the Huffington Post. And I was like, you have an opportunity here to shape media, and you're ruining it, And I think he thought that was quite funny. And I was obviously like come from Australia and thought I was, it was a bit too big for my own boots. But he sort of appreciated that and found it charming, I think. Which was lucky for me because it wasn't a nice thing to say. But, again, he was right from a monetary perspective, but now I barely go to the Huffington Post, where at the time that was kind of like my key place to go for news. And so that was like a really interesting conversation about like media and the tech space in the industry, and that, and then meeting him and the things that he was invested in showed me like what was trending at the time. It was like, Kickstarter and Warby Parker and just like a lot, and that sort of got me really hungry about commerce and the way to think about commerce and media, and that's kind of been my focus since that day. So I think that was kind of like a life altering moment for me, whether I realized it or not. Other people I think that have really inspired me are often really creative people. You know what I mean? I have someone I met here who's like one of my closest friends now, who's a composer, and just the way that he sees the world completely differently and inspired by things around him. And a lot of things that we sort of take for granted when you're like kind of starting your own business and you're a workaholic, you kind of like don't like pull inspiration from, reading or being exposed to music or art and culture or just general like light conversations over dinner. And so, there's little elements and they pull me out of my things and bring me into that. So I think you can get anything out of any kind of conversation. Yeah.
I think it's such an important thing to express to people. And I also love that you don't approach it as networking. When I first started working and people would say networking, I thought it was going to be a conversation about our LinkedIn profiles. And all I was thinking, I just don't have that much to say yet. But it's really just going and meeting someone as a friend.
Yeah. I mean, it was sort of interesting. I didn't really know anyone here when I moved here 5 years ago. And so I had a dinner for like, I don't know, I think like 40, 50 people or something like that for my 30th birthday at my apartment. And I kind of looked around the room and I was like, there's only a few people here that are my age. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of everyone who's really involved in my life and who I really wanted to be there. I've just met along the way for various different reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, they're friendships really. And I think that's the beauty of New York. I mean, I think it would be quite weird in Australia for me to be regularly having dinner with like older businessmen, where here it's really not. Like these guys, at a point in their career where they have more time, they have a huge amount of insight, and they're really looking to mentor people and spend time with people. And I'm just
helpful.
Like lucky to have that opportunity. Yeah.
That's something I've been wowed about too, is you meet people who are, hundreds of times busier than you are, yet when you email them and you ask them for help, they respond instantly.
Yeah. Like I ran to a guy at my Christmas party for some reason, and he was a ex-political fixer who now is doing a comic book. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's kind of rad.
Life changes. Take it where it goes.
You don't hear that every day. Yeah. So I think it's part of the New York culture as well. But yeah, I love people.
So now for you, Alexandra, as you look ahead for Download, or aside from Download, what are you excited about in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Download is my life. I really just want to, change the way that people interact with content on different screens and how they do that, And so I'm exposed to so many different screens on a daily basis, and there's still a lot of pain points. And, even from like reading an article in, when I wake up with my morning coffee, and then going for a run, it start to read to me, and like this whole idea of this like connectivity and what does that sort of world look like, and how can I be a way in which the layman can be involved in that, and so I'm sort of joining those dots and binding it off every day.
I love it. Before we go, we always focus on 3 questions that don't have to do anything with work. So we'll start out with the first one. Have you met Warren Buffett?
No.
Okay. I know you want to. You have to get up on those calendars.
Yeah.
Question 2. If you were a song, what song would you be?
Oh. Singing in the Rain.
I love it. No one ever has like a fast response. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Number 3. What's one question that you've always wanted to be asked, but nobody's ever asked you?
Oh. I get asked a lot of questions. I know. I think I always think about like, if a younger me had met me, what would I have thought of me? Oh God, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, would she be like, oh, that's all? I was so like very hard on myself my entire life, and I wonder what she would think, And so I think, I don't know. I guess it's always something that I always reflect on for one reason or another.
Do you think she'd be happy?
I think she'd be like, you're doing good, but she wouldn't be stoked, Not yet.
Well, she should be stoked because you've done a lot of great things.
Cool, thanks.
Before we go, Alexandra, what's the best way for everyone to stay up to date with you, with the team, but also for individuals and teams who are excited to start using Download? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just go to the website. It's download.ma. Yeah, it's spelled without the vowels, DWNLD.ma. And then our customer service guys are sort of all over that. And then my email is alexandra@download.ma. And I reply to all emails surprisingly. So yeah, shoot me an email if I can help.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks so much for having me.